David will leave us on saxophone. Home for the holidays, I suppose, from the Lucy Show with Wayne Moore. So you guys remember Wayne? He was our music director here for 16 years. Now his show is wildly successful. So we're delighted to have you back and delighted the show's doing so well. So for those of you who may not know, I think we're all locals here, but in case there's any newbies out there, my name is Reverend Michael McMorrow. I'm the spiritual director here at our Center for Spiritual Living here in Granada Hills, in case you didn't know where you were. Yes. So I have a standing joke about O'Grady's being across the street. We're very pleased this morning to have the big boss of Centers for Spiritual Living here, our president, Dr. John. And just so you know that our organization has two elected leaders, one of them being the spiritual leader, whom many of you have met through Dr. Ken Gordon. And then the person who runs the day-to-day organization, which has been a huge job as we come together in integration, probably more than you bargained for, I'm guessing. And so Dr. John is responsible for putting all that together. He's been in ministry a long time. He also has a PhD in organizational psychology, which impresses the heck out. I don't know when he found time to do that. He's a father, long time, been married a long time to his wonderful wife, Dr. Barbara. And they have a kind of a campus, really, in Asheville, North Carolina, that they have literally carved out of the woods out there. So please help me welcome the Most Reverend Dr.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Reverend Michael. Thank you, Ignata, for a great lesson there. That was wonderful, and your prayer was just delightful. You guys know how to pray. I'm really always grateful when I find that. Yeah, thank you. And the music here is amazing, is it not? Yeah. Wow. And at the earlier service, I was being grateful that with the great presence of music that you have, that you left a little space here for a speaker, and then can inform me this is where the drummer works. I have ambivalent feelings about him not being here today. Yeah, all things in perfect order, really. So thank you, and I bring to you a gift. It comes out of a long conversation from my colleagues and I talking about this idea of us having a prayer that we can identify as our expression into the world. You know that many spiritual movements have specific prayers that are said and known and people relate to. And there's the Christian prayers of the Lord's Prayer, there's the Apostles' Creed. In the Catholic Church, there are those that we know, the Hail Marys and all the wonderful prayers that people recite and identify with a certain community. Even the alcoholics have a prayer. Yeah, it's called the Serenity Prayer. They say it at every one of those meetings. We're not talking about the drunks, we're talking about the alcoholics. and so if you can be identified with a prayer, and I think we could do that. And this would be my nomination. So it's going to go up on the board in a second, but what I'd like you to do is go ahead and close your eyes, and I will offer it to you as a gift, and let it wash over you. And then when the lights, when we're complete, let's open our eyes and we'll say it together. So here's how it goes. I know that within myself there is that life which is perfect, complete, divine. It was never born and cannot die, for it lives and is God. Within myself is the wholeness, peace, poise, and power of life. This life is health, it is abundance, it is love. There is one life, and it is the life of God, and this is my life now. And so it is. You like that? You want to say it together? Let's say it together. I know that within myself there is that life which is perfect, complete, divine. It was never born and cannot die, for it lives and it is God. Within myself is the wholeness, peace, poise, and power of life. This life is health. It is abundance, it is There is one life, and it is the life of God, and this is my life now, and so it is. Yay! Thank you. Well done. So on the little pedestals in the back of the room, we have these little sheets of paper, and that prayer is on there. If that moves you and you would like it, please take one of those with you. Put it somewhere where you're going to see it and where it will remind you of who we are in our faith as students of the science of mind. As Reverend Michael explained, I am the co-minister of the Center for Spiritual Living in Asheville, North Carolina. We're up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Actually, Asheville's where the Blue Ridge Mountains meet the Smoky Mountains, and it's one of the most beautiful places on the earth. And I am so grateful to be part of that community there, which my wife and I started 19 years ago. This coming January, we started on January 15th, 1995, with a conversation in our living room. We thought a few people would come and sit around the coffee table, but 30 people showed up. So we had to move everything out of the living room, and Barbara went off to the local Office Depot and bought 30 chairs, 30 folding chairs, and went around and ripped off that thing that says you can't remove it. I thought, oh, this is really going to happen, isn't it? And it did. And we went from our living room into a single wide mobile home. We tore the front off and built a 30 by 30 room. And did church in a little tiny place like that for about 5 years, until we moved onto the campus we're on now. And so we are so blessed. We're on 6 acres in the city of Asheville. We have a beautiful campus. We actually built our home there as well, and so we're there a lot. And we have one distinction in our movement. Right now, we are the only Science of Mind center in the world that has an elementary school. It's called Light of Wisdom School. And we're very proud of that, and it's really working for us. So we understand that our path is to present this and bring this to as many people as possible. We had this past Friday night, just 2 nights ago, we had our annual, what we call Celebration and Commitment Dinner. And we invited all of our people to come. We sent out invitations, and my staff came and said, okay, what's our quote this year? And I went off to do my little research, and I came up with a quote. It's a quote from Dr. Tara Brach, who is an American psychologist, pretty well-known lady, and also a bit of an Eastern mystic. She offers these words, and we put this on the cover of our invitation. The spiritual path is not a solo endeavor. In fact, the very notion of someone freeing him or herself is a delusion. We are in it together, and the company of spiritual friends helps us realize our interconnectedness. We are in it together. This is not a solo endeavor. What does that mean? To me, that speaks to why we come together like this. We come together like this because this is the place where we can really embrace and embody the teaching. You can go read a book. You can take a class. Have you ever heard anybody say that? Oh, I took that class. Classes are great. I'm not saying don't take classes. Classes are wonderful. But you need more than a book or a program to do this. You've got to engage in it. You've got to make it work. You've got to make sure that you are living this thing. If you want it to be in the world, you have to be the one that does that. And the safest place to do it is here, because we're all in it together. That's what makes this work. So we don't go off on a solo endeavor to try to find who we are on a spiritual basis. I've discovered many years ago that the numbers clearly state that if this universe had been designed for us to do it alone, we'd each be on our own planet. We're not. There are plenty of planets out there, and we could each have our own, but that's not the way we do it. We come together on this planet to do it together. And the great place to start is right here in the midst of this community. There could be lots of reasons why people do this, but it comes down to that. That's the universal thing that calls us together, is that we can support one another, we can lift one another up, we can be who we've come to be here first, and then take it out into the world. Because if we try to go out there with it before we're clear about what it is, we can get lost in that, because that's pretty loud out there. It's not wrong, but once we know that God is all there is, which is the core message of our teaching, that all of us exist and dwell within the mind and body of God, and that everything has that. There's nothing that is not God. And I love what just recently happened with the Nobel prize being offered in physics is that, God is everything, but God is not absorbed by His creation, as Ernest Holmes says, which means that we don't find something that's more God than us. But God is in the midst of it all, and everything is in the midst of God. Every body, every form, every cell, every molecule, every atom, every quark, every boson. Boson, that's the thing they call the God particle. That means it's all God, no exceptions. And when we start living our lives according to that understanding, life looks different. Because that means if you're going to get mad at somebody, you're getting mad at God. If you're going to find fault in the world, you're going to find fault in God. And that can't be. Now, does that mean we have to like everything that's going on? Of course not. But we don't go to war with anything. Holmes, in his mystical brilliance, said our task is to be for something and against nothing. The great teacher of the East, Sister Teresa, Mother Teresa was invited to go to an anti-war rally, and she said, I will never go to an anti-war rally. And the person was astonished and said, why? She said, invite me to a peace rally and I'll be there in a heartbeat, but I'm not going to go be against anything. She obviously understood that deep spiritual teaching, as we all are seeking to do by coming into spiritual community. So we come here, we walk in the door, every one of us walks in the door of a center at one time. Maybe today's your first day, maybe not, but when you walked in, you were looking for something. Because we're all looking for something. And at that point, that really works, because there's something to get here. Here's the challenge of that, though. If we come and our whole intention continues to be to receive, and we are in what we call in our community receivership. That's a nice way of somebody trying to get something. That will cause you to leave. Why would that be? Well, one of two things are going to happen. If you're there to receive something, to get something, you're either going to get it or you're not. And if you get it, you've got it and you can leave. And if you don't get it, then you're going to think it's not there and you're going to leave. Huh. Yeah. So if your focus is to receive, you're going to leave. If your focus is to be all that you can be, to be who you come to this life to be, that is a never-ending path. Yep, that will continue to reveal itself within you and all around you, no matter what. If you're focused on how can I know more clearly who I am, that has no destination, and that is simply a direction to move in life. And that will allow you to continue to grow and prosper in this teaching. So focus on who you are. Focus on the divine nature of who you are. And that gives you a reason to get up on Sunday morning, to get up and come to class, to be a part of the activities and events that go on in this community, because they are steeped in who you are being more than what you are getting. You will still get, because everybody that gives gets. But don't let that be your reason. Have you seen that with treatment? We had a thing that happened in our community years ago. Every first Sunday we do this grand covered dish luncheon. And the center fixes certain things, which means I used to cook a lot. And then everybody brings side dishes and we have all this food. Well, over a series of months, the food was kind of waning. And so being the organizational psychologist that I am, I decided to do a survey. So at the end of the food line, I had a couple of people handing out these one-page surveys, asking people to fill it out. I chose back and front, and people did. They filled them out, put them in the basket by the door when they left. And we asked, questions like, how was the luncheon for you today? Did you get enough food? Did you like the selection? People would write in answers about how they never have the foods that I can eat. If I'm too far back in the line, the things that I like are already gone. That was some of the answers. Other answers were, oh, we love this. Having being able to bring food and share and be together for a meal like this is great. If you need more food, let us know. We'll bring more food. The last question on the survey was, did you bring food today? A perfect correlation right down the middle. The people that had not brought food were complaining. The people that had brought food were not. So I got up and shared the results the next week to the group. And I said, and it was an anonymous survey, but I said, I know who wrote these things down. I thought some people were going to have heart attacks, like they were coded or something. I said, it was us. It was us. And are we really going to be in a place of thinking that life's not enough, that we don't have enough, that things aren't working out? Is that the game we want to play, or do you want to live by this principle that says there's always enough? And to make it always enough, you got to jump in and make it happen. That's what will make it work. So what are you giving to life? What are you bringing? How are you in service? This is a great place to practice service. I know many of you already do that. But find your way. Find the thing that is yours to do. I know when I came into my first community, I had lived in Australia for a year. I had run away from home. My marriage failed. My business closed. Everything wasn't working, so I ran as far away as I could get. And that's Australia, at least from the East Coast. You go directly through the planet, and there's the continent of Australia. They speak somewhat a form of English there. And I could hide out for the rest of my days. Well, it lasted a year. I found my first spiritual teacher. He was amazing. He was trained in Zen Buddhism and Scientology. Remember that word? But he had left the Church of Scientology and created this wonderful teaching institute there, and I learned and grew from him. It was just amazing. He came back to the United States. It took me 3 days to find my first center. And in those days, they were called Churches of Religious Science. But the sign out front said, Science of Mind. And I saw that and pulled in and went into the office. And a woman came out and I said, what's Science of Mind? I have no idea what she said to me that day. But she said, come on Sunday. So I did. There was a center aisle in that church, and I sat on the first seat on the left-hand side in the front row, and that was my seat for the next 5 years. I just absorbed it like a sponge. And it started me right away on this idea of service. I was in, and that was the second week I was there. A man named Marty LaPata was the president of the board of the Huntington Beach Church. And that was a very successful church in the 80s. And he was there working with the board and had a group of people kind of cornered, talking to them about starting a new committee, a new service project. And it was called the Outrageous Committee. And he had like 3 or 4 people, and you could see them as he was talking, backing away, going, I don't think that's mine to do. Well, I butted into the conversation and said, I'll do it. And he explained to me it was about doing announcements to get people's attention in an outrageous way. And so we did it. We started it, and we did some crazy announcements. We had an annual banquet that we were promoting, our outrageous team, and I had all my team members come up on stage, and they all had little signs that they were holding backwards that looked like they were holding blank. But what happened was I would stand at the podium and say, okay, so next Saturday night is our banquet, and we only have 2 tickets left. And the person would turn over the sign and says, he's lying, we have lots of tickets left. And I said, and if you buy those 2 tickets, we'll have you picked up in a limousine. And the next sign said, no, you got to get yourself there. And then I said that our guest musician that night would be Frank Sinatra. He was alive in the 80s. And the person said, of course not, it's going to be our band. And right on down the line. But it got their attention, and we sold lots of tickets and had a great time. Another time, what I did was I went out in the garden and I dug up a plant, put it in a pot, and brought it up, put it on the podium on Sunday morning. I said, this is a miracle. From a tiny seed came forth this plant, taking the sunlight and the rain and the earth and turning it into this magnificent form of life. You see it? Now this is known as a weed, and we're going to go dig those out of the garden on Saturday. I was hooked. I was so in, and from there I just was totally immersed in that community, and we made stuff happen that was just amazing, and I'm so grateful for my entry into this, and it was really out of service that I have come to a place of being the president of our organization. And probably the greatest achievement of my life was bringing our 2 organizations that split within months of my birth, and went on 2 separate tracks to bring them back together as one so that we could practice the idea of oneness that we've been teaching all these years. So we accomplished that. We are one again. There's lots of work to do. We're not by any means complete with our process, but we know that building community is our most important goal. Some people say it's education, and I won't argue that point, but to me, the idea of creating community is the greatest thing that we can do. My research, looking back historically of spiritual movements, is that community is what actually moves a spiritual idea forward. When we have the opportunity to do it together in the early Christian church, That was absolutely required, that people came together. If you look at the books of the New Testament, the church in Corinth and the church in Philippi or Philippi, wherever it is, and all those different books that were written by Paul and other people, the letters that were written to them were because they were in trouble. They weren't getting along. They were bickering. They were confused as to what they were doing, but they all kind of coalesced around one idea, that God is love. And out of that, they built a great spiritual movement. Way back then, all around the Mediterranean, they built a great spiritual movement. It became institutionalized, and that's just the way it went. But the fact is the reason it survived was not based on the theology as much as the understanding of the presence of God as love. And I believe that we have the opportunity today to do the same work. Because our teaching is very simple. This is not a complicated teaching that we have. What we believe is that everything is God. That everything exists in the oneness of the divine. And that if we can continue to pursue that understanding, our lives will continue to be enriched because we will have nothing to complain about. We will have no one to judge. We will not be fault finders. We will be love finders. And that out of that, we will create a great spiritual movement that will change the world. We keep talking about creating a world that works for everyone. The world already does work for everyone. It's just that everyone doesn't know the world is working. This teaching allows us to know that everything is in its perfect order. Allows us to resolve our issues. And we started here together so that if we fall down, we have people that understand and will help us get back up. People that will lift us up as we lift those around us up. As we remember the truth. Even when it doesn't look quite like that. Early Christian church, there were plenty of arguments. There was plenty of disagreement. So if you hear a disagreement around here, that doesn't mean anything's wrong. It means somebody's working out their stuff and remembering who they are. So support them in that. Don't take sides. There are no sides in the oneness of God. So we're on this path together, and we create it here in a wonderful way, and then we take it out into the world once we're clear. We allow this that we're learning here to influence our life out there once we're clear about it. That's the work for us to do. So that when we go into our families and into our immediate family at home, and then we go into our work or our school or wherever we're socially involved, when we go into our family reunions, and recognize that uncle that drives you crazy is the presence of the divine. It shifts your focus to say, I got to know in the room. But if either God is all there is or not. And I believe that God is all there is. Even in the cranky, nasty, ugly, putrid things that we don't want to be God, God's in the midst of that. How can we find the divine? Here we can find the divine. From this perspective, we can find the divine in anything. I mentioned in the earlier service that if you've got somebody in your family that pushes your buttons, be grateful for them. They remind you how much you've grown. Get up. If nothing else, and let them be who they are, bless them, release them, let them do what they need to do. You do what you need to do, and you'll find your way. That's how life works, in a very, very powerful way. So when we take it out, we make a difference in the world. A theologian named Frederick Buechner wrote these words: "The life I touch, for good or ill, will touch another life, and that in turn another, until who knows where the trembling stops, and in what faraway place my touch will be felt." You are touching the world. You are touching the world. Many people say we have the best message on the planet. So when you touch people with what you know, not by teaching them, not by lecturing them, but by simply being who you have come to be, you create a better world that touches them and they again touch another. That's our mission. That's the reason we have community. It isn't limited by these walls. There are no limits. God is everywhere present. Our job is to see that, to know that, and to live that way, no matter what. And when we do, the world really does get better. And more people recognize that the world is already working. It's working very well. Consciousness prevails always. And as we refine and hone our skills and our understanding, the world around us changes because of us. That's how it works. How wonderful is that? Isn't that great?
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, I think you're ready for me to close, because I saw hands going. I want to quote our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes. When I first read The Science of Mind, I didn't start at the beginning. I dug in and found the conclusion. Because I wanted to know where he was going. And what it says in the conclusion that I find incredibly powerful is, what the world needs is spiritual conviction, followed by spiritual experience. That's the essence of what we get to do. What we are convinced is so, we experience in our lives. So why are we convinced is so? Are we convinced somebody else is wrong, somebody's done us wrong, somebody's bad, something is not working in the world, or are we convinced that the presence of the divine is unfolding perfectly? And when we don't like something, that's an opportunity for it to evolve into something we do like. If we live our lives that way, we get the life we're looking for. He says, I would rather see a student of this science prove its principle than to have him repeat all the words of wisdom that have ever been uttered. Yeah. Live this teaching. Practice it in your daily lives. Don't worry about being able to quote anybody. Just be able to know who you are. It's the simplest teaching in the world. Not the easiest, but the simplest. And with that, we get to create the life that we desire by simply knowing who we are. And the final part of that for the teachers in the room is, it is far easier to teach the truth than it is to practice it. So, take that with you today. Thank you for coming to this place. Not just today, but every time you walk in this door. You come and you bring something wonderful, and you get to take something wonderful with you. That's the beauty of the spiritual community. It's the most powerful tool we have. And thank you, Reverend Michael. And thank you all who support this community in such an extraordinary way. You are making a difference in the world, and I'm so honored and blessed to be here with you today. God bless you for who you are and all you do. So